Alrighty. So today we have Liz Cash. She is a trainer in New York City, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Liz. And she has a very unique background working with camera operators. She used to be in like the motion picture industry and has now switched and is now helping do like injury prevention, I guess you could kind of say. But we are going to chat with her today about kind of what she does and how she looks at things and actual like the physical needs and demands on these people's bodies that I never actually thought about until I've been talking to you, that these camera operators actually have to go through to make a movie, to make a TV show, and all that type of stuff. So, add anything you want in, Liz, and give us a little brief rundown.
Yeah, so like you said, my former career is in the motion picture industry. I went to film school originally, started working in the movie business in 2006, and sort of had a little internal struggle for a while about whether or not I felt like that was the right career for me. I always had a lot of different interests, and I had been a competitive athlete in college and kind of got to a point that I felt torn by the inherently unhealthy lifestyle that the movie business imposes upon you. And the part of myself that wanted to take good care of myself and liked, uh, training and being in good shape. And through that period, I kind of had a lot of experiences of hurting myself because, I was just young enough to think that, like, well, it's okay if I worked 70 hours this week. I'm going to go, I'm going to go hit it hard on the weekend.
Right.
And I didn't really know a lot about good lifting form, despite the fact that I had been a competitive athlete, in a variety of
Yeah.
sports. Meanwhile, the job of a motion picture camera person requires a lot of heavy lifting and long hours, which is a really dangerous combination. And to add a little icing on that cake, you work long, irregular hours.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're a construction worker where you go to work at 6 a.m. and you're done by 4 p.m. every day of the week. In the movie business, you're sort of experiencing perpetual jet lag.
Oh,
You
geez.
might start on Monday at 6 a.m., and by Wednesday, you go to work at noon, and by Friday, you go to work at 6 p.m. And each of those work days is usually about a minimum of 12 hours, but a maximum of 16. I mean, there really is no maximum.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, so it's a hard lifestyle for someone who is also trying to do anything outside of work. And so it was really through my own experiences hurting myself that I started to get more and more curious about the body and, why was one person able to help me if I, threw out my back, and why was someone else not? And as I continued to go down that sort of path of understanding what was happening there, I became interested in changing careers and becoming the kind of practitioner that was able to help people.
Yeah.
um,
When did you find PRI? And like, how
I
did you
want
find it?
So I had a trainer friend here in New York who had stumbled also upon PRI, but because I wasn't in the field, he was speaking to me about the diaphragm in a very abstract way. And in college, I had a minor in history, so I'm like good at researching stuff. And so I would just be sitting there like before what a diaphragm, psoas, like just looking for like what is he talking about? And I think one
Yeah.
day I came across a PRI article and I sent it to him, and he said, "Yeah, that's what I do." I was like, "Why didn't you say so?" And so once that door was kind of cracked open, I was like, "Huh, what is this diaphragm stuff?" I
Yeah.
think I think at that point in my trajectory, I had probably learned a little bit about, like, oh, distal mobility precedes proximal stability. And like, oh, you can roll your foot on a ball and get a change in your range of motion. Like little nuggets like that I was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. But finally, I think it was 2017, I signed up for respiration.
Okay.
And at this point, I had already started changing careers. I think 2016 is when I officially started like turning down work in the movie business, which is a tough thing because in the movie business, you're not, um, most people are not employed full time whatsoever. You get hired on a job, a TV show, or a movie. It lasts, let's say, 3 to 6, maybe 10 months at the most. And then the job ends and you've got to find another job.
Oh,
Yeah, so when you start saying, I'm not available to take these calls, it means you're opening up the door to not having employment for a long period of time, potentially, which of course is terrifying.
yeah.
Um, I decided to start working as a personal trainer, got my personal training and nutrition coaching certificates because I knew ultimately I wanted to work for myself. But it was a tricky period there where, as someone who had a degree in a different field and
Mhm.
had some retrospective thoughts on what might I have done differently in film school to get more out of that, I knew that going in this direction, I wanted to really expose myself to as much information as possible, as many different methodologies, thought processes, concepts, while going through physical therapy prerequisite courses. Because of
Yeah.
course, like, I went to film school. I didn't take any science. The only science I had in film school was geology. So to suddenly be doing college physics and all this stuff was an interesting experience.
Yeah.
But it was interesting along that path because it was never my intention to become the specialist for people in the motion picture industry, but people who knew me as a colleague in the industry just started coming to me, and it was interesting to hear their stories. Like I was saying, the movie business requires you to work very long hours. It's
Mhm.
extremely demanding. Um, you have to be really motivated, and as a result of that, a lot of people sacrifice their bodies in any number of ways. So I guess I got to a point where I was hearing the most unacceptable advice that these colleagues of mine from the movie business had gotten from practitioners who would tell them like, well, can't you just put the camera down more? What do you mean you have to hold the camera for 10 hours? No, that's not an option.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where, as I, even just taking respiration in 2017, that, I don't know how much I got from that course, quite honestly. I remember sitting in that course and Skip George is teaching, and he's saying something about, apical expansion. Some guy in the back is like, left hamstring. And I'm like, what is happening? I don't know what they're talking about. But even at that time, I think the reason I started with respiration was because I had noticed that I had a number of clients who had shoulder issues. And when I would give them any sort of single leg lunge, split squat, something that required them to balance a little bit, I would see them do these funny things with their shoulders, and they were recruiting their necks. And I was like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
Why does this person with a shoulder injury do this funny thing with their head and their neck? And I can tell they're not using the systems they should be using to get out of this position. So even at that early stage, I think PRI, I knew I was onto something.
Sure. Sure.
And I guess at that time, it was kind of interesting because, like I said, I didn't intend to become a specialist for movie business people, but they just kept coming to me. And at a certain point, I got contacted by the International Cinematographers Guild, which is the union for camera people.
Okay.
And they said like, oh, we've heard about the work you're doing with people in the industry. Do you think you could put together a workshop on injury prevention, on strength training? Really, they wanted strength training, and that was kind of the turning point for the way I looked at what people in the industry need, because they did a survey of members.
Hmm.
Now the union is national, so there's, I don't know, 10,000 people, maybe 15,000. Don't quote me, but it's a lot of people.
Big.
Uh, yeah, and in this survey, they asked people, what are you most interested in? What are you struggling with? To kind of just gauge what do they need. And they sent me the results, and it was like 85 pages of people talking about, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep doing this. I have nerve pain in my legs. It's so bad I can't sleep at night. Just like terrible.
Jeez.
Yeah, people were in really rough shape. There was almost no one who was like, well, I'd just like to get stronger. So at that point, I was like, okay, change of plans. These people need to know what are the most important things they can be doing.
Yeah.
That, like, teaching this person how to deadlift, in my opinion, is a waste of time.
Mhm.
They've got chronic pain, they've got severe pain. That needs a very different solution. So that was really a shift for me, because I remember before getting those results, I was like, I'll teach them how to deadlift. We got this. Like, it's gonna be great. But yeah, ever since then, I felt like it was really important, because these people work such crazy hours under very difficult conditions, that they have not just some tools in their toolbox, but an understanding of why they're doing what they're doing, because these are intelligent people who are very A-type, which can
Yeah.
sometimes make them stubborn. So I felt like, well, if I can help them understand why we're doing this, why does
Yeah.
this matter? And so that's where even just the fundamental piece of postural restoration, with breathing is our most fundamental movement pattern. How many
Mhm.
breaths are you going to take every single day? And now let's consider the fact that as a camera person, you might be taking those breaths with 50 pounds on one shoulder.
Yep.
If they're in a handheld camera situation, that camera can be pretty heavy. And depending on the job, some of these people are doing reality television, which means in reality you don't cut the camera, as opposed to in a narrative thing you might be shooting for 3 minutes and then you get a break, and then 3 minutes and you get a break. But all of that just sort of increasingly made me want to find the most critical things that they needed, and that's really still to this day a big part of how I work with my clients, is number one, like, helping them to understand why this matters, helping them
Mhm.
to get some insight into the nervous system, and really embracing that piece of, you're an adaptable person. Your
Mhm.
brain and body are meant to get better at certain things. So then what do we want to adapt to?
Yeah.
Part of the problem that I often explain to them with being a camera person is, obviously, every PRI person knows the human body is asymmetrical. They then get loaded even deeper into that asymmetry by the load of the camera. So whether no matter what part of the industry they're in, television, film, what have you, that load is exponentially increased. Now you throw on top of that the fact that they have a totally dysregulated sleep schedule, and they are just
Yeah.
ripe to get hurt.
Yeah. So what were like the common injuries that were seen
You
for
know,
respirators?
it's all the usual stuff. They have a disc injury, they have a shoulder injury, uh, hips. It's all the usual stuff. It's just
Okay.
the reason the reason for the injury is different, and the solution is different, because I think for them it's imperative to help them really embrace the asymmetry piece. If
Sure.
that person, who literally, like, a lot of camera operators will, I mean, their right shoulder will be so much lower than their left, because it's
Mhm.
been so compressed. There's a guy in the industry here in New York who had developed all these gadgets to try to reduce his physical exertion while managing a handheld camera on his shoulder. He'd have, like, bungees tied to the camera that then, like, loop into his
Oh,
belt, and
geez.
all kinds of things, just to make it somewhat less strenuous when you're tethered to this camera.
Yeah.
But I think what's always amazing to me is to be able to give someone the technique that their body really needs,
Mhm.
and then watch them have such a aha moment, where I think that's part of why I love using PRI with people, is, once you hit that button, they have that moment of realization, that really opens the door to, I think, them feeling like, oh, I don't have to be in pain forever. I don't
Yeah.
have to be stuck. A lot of my clients are Steadicam operators, and Steadicam is a very specific kind of contraption. The camera operator wears this vest. The
Okay.
vest straps to their thorax, and then the vest has a spring-loaded arm that kind of allows it to do this sort of thing, which then attaches to a camera, which
Okay.
which yeah is a very dynamic system, and it allows them to like run backwards and run upstairs while what the audience sees is a very fluid device, so it's stabilized.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so for a lot of those people, there is a mantra that I hate, which is that you got to get better at using your Steadicam muscle. Now, what they mean is your low back.
Yeah.
And I hate that because I'm like, guys, please don't normalize pain. You know, one of the things that blew my mind when I first started working more with Steadicam operators, which was in 2019, is this: so they wear this vest, and there's all kinds of different vests.
Hmm.
And there was no diagnostic process whatsoever to help a given Steadicam operator decide what vest would be best for them.
Mm.
Which blew my mind, right? Like, we
Yeah.
know this person has more hip external rotation than that person, but they're going to be in the same vest. Like, surely we can do better than that.
Yeah.
Um, and people who would come to me would make very strong statements. They would say, that vest almost ended my career, and this one saved it. And then someone else would tell you the exact opposite. So I was like, yeah. So I was like, okay, there's something here. And it's funny because for a while I think I was a little too micro in my thought process on that. And I was like checking like every little range of motion at every joint. It's got to be this, it's got to be that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was sitting in impingement and instability, I think 2022, and it kind of hit me from a big picture perspective. Like, what are we really talking about? There's sort of, in my opinion, there's like three broad categories of vests. And like, isn't it interesting to consider we've got like three broad categories in PRI?
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it's like quite so one for one, but the vests load the body differently. And my hypothesis at that point, based on everything I've heard from people, is that the vest that is helping them to do the job and reduce pain and have more endurance, because it's all of those, has
Hmm.
got to be giving them something they need. It's got to be getting them a little bit closer to neutral.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's helping them posteriorly tilt their pelvis. Maybe it's helping them get their lower ribs down. It's doing something that's reducing pain and improving endurance. So that's got to be making them more neutral. And so once I had that sort of as a principle, I started uh, conducting a study to identify what are the common characteristics of people that like this vest versus that vest. You know, what are their anthropometrics?
Okay.
Yeah, and that's been great because that's the kind of thing they need. You know, for that demographic, it's just so incredibly demanding. Uh, they need the tools that are going to help them stay ahead of getting hurt,
Mm.
not get hurt and then try to come back and work through it while they're on set, 14 hours a day.
Yeah. So, like, new people coming out of like film school, like, do have you been able to like set up anything to help these people figure out what type of vest they need to be in? Like,
So that's a great question. Not yet in terms of film school specifically.
oh, okay.
There's an organization called the Steadicam Operators Association, which is sort of like one of the main Steadicam training groups in the country. And so sometimes I do presentations for them
Okay.
where we talk about some of these things. One of their instructors is a colleague of mine. And so he and I do presentations together sometimes. And we've done some workshops where people can work with him sort of from the technical side and then come see me so they're not struggling through why they're struggling to execute, a certain shot. Well, you don't have any hip extension, so let's get you some hip extension, and then I send them
Yeah.
back to them, and and it's I think it's even them just knowing that there's something else that's missing
Mm-hmm.
that can help them expedite that result, because it really has been that simple
Oh,
in a
nice.
lot of ways. And
That,
because I think, it's like so many other things. If you don't know what's missing, how can you go about solving the problem? So many of those people would have thought they were just too tight and they need to stretch more.
yes. Yes, we hear that all the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things I would like to do that hasn't happened yet is to find a way to collaborate with the vest manufacturers
Oh, yeah.
around sort of getting them to get people access to this diagnostic process
Mm-hmm.
before they decide to buy a vest. Because, I mean, for context, a Steadicam vest can be like $10,000.
Oh, geez.
To buy all of the equipment required can be like $50,000.
Wow.
So now, of course, like potentially you could resell something if you ended up realizing that you hate the vest. But from my perspective, it's like, why put your body at risk
Yeah.
because you got something that does not work for where you are currently?
Yeah.
Start with the right one the first time.
Yeah.
Um, it's yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, one of the things I see with my clients who are working full time, which again is like 70 hours a week, is that I'm not even worried about like or attempting to keep them neutral. They're gonna get messed up. They're gonna go to
Mm-hmm.
work, not sleep, be under load. It's extremely stressful. So my approach is always to just like, okay, what can I give you that one little thing that you can go do on set? Can you go do, you know, an all fours, with left posterior capsule inhibition, and helping them to see the difference with just one technique has been a game changer for their willingness to do it, because that was the other thing. They're tired. They
Yeah.
don't, they don't want to do much. So if I can just give them one thing that really opens them up, then they'll do it consistently.
Nice. Nice. I know you've got some clips because we've been talking about Steadicam. I literally knew none of this until I had met you, a couple of years ago, I think it was.
Yeah.
So if you want, let's show some of these clips so some of these people that are watching this, they can see the demand that goes on to these camera operators and whatnot. And you can show stuff, stop whenever you want, add in comments, anything that you see. But I just love that this is totally different and that you're using it more as injury prevention.
Yeah. So stand by. Just gonna switch the mic here. Okay. You can see that? Or are you seeing us?
I think we got to get you.
Uh,
There we go. You can
okay.
make that big.
So there we go.
Yep.
You can hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So, little context. This is Garrett Brown. He's the inventor of Steadicam. What you're going to see is sort of the first iteration, like the first Steadicam model he ever created. Garrett Brown has also been the creator of a number of other camera modalities, like the sky cam that they use in sports, where the camera is just like zooming back and forth. He invented that. So he's a big deal in the camera world.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit about the why he created Steadicam as an alternative to other ways of operating a camera, which at that time, if they wanted something that was free moving, the only other option was to put the camera on your shoulder and run or walk or whatever, but that has a less stable look, which sometimes you want that. But he came up with Steadicam to have a smooth and free-moving apparatus. So here's what it looks like.
We made for the Steadicam, which was 30 impossible shots. I liked handheld. I did not like the way it looked then or now. And so what I needed was a way to disconnect the camera from the person. The great thing about that invention is you can shoot something that anybody in the business will know is impossible. It went.
Yeah, so for context, if you were trying to do this with a handheld camera, the frame would be bouncing up and down because it's on the shoulder, versus the Steadicam allowed the camera to be slightly away from the person, again with this stabilized arm, so it can create a fluid shot.
Quote, viral in 35 millimeter. Copies of it went around the world and was seen by, everybody that was anybody in the business. Kubrick saw the reel and sent a telex that gave me chills to read. And the telex said, should revolutionize the way films are shot. You can count on me as a customer. Very Kubrickian sentence that followed said, oh, by the way, if you're interested in protecting it, there are 14 frames of film that show a shadow of it on the ground with something slowly rotating, but my lips are sealed, he said. Of course, we darted into the screening room, and by God, he was right. We had to cut those frames out of the demo. And then enigmatically at the end, he said, is there a minimum height at which it could be used? That led to us inventing something called low mode. And he immediately decided to use it on the film he was prepping, hence the question, what's the minimum height? Because he was about to shoot Danny Lloyd and The Shining. It hadn't occurred to me that Kubrick loves to do multiple takes. And the idea of me running, for example, after Danny on his big wheel.
Yeah, so this is a low mode shot.
Yours truly, at age 34 or whatever, would have gotten about 3 passes around that hotel, and I.
So, one thing I want to say about this is, interestingly, for Steadicam people in particular, now this is sort of a movement analysis perspective, but they've got a lot of proprioceptive, compressive feedback coming from that Steadicam because they've got this vest that is attached to their entire thorax, right? And then they've got the offset weight of the camera. So one of the things that I've seen with Steadicam people is that, especially the ones who have been doing it for a longer period of time, it's completely changing their proprioception.
Oh.
Like a lot of Steadicam people, and this was something I heard again since like 2019, and I was like, well, that's not great. They would say, I have pain as soon as I get out of the Steadicam, but not while I'm in it. Now, logically, to some degree, that doesn't make sense, right? You've got all this external load, and it's offset from your body.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to wear that. And, this entire, between the camera itself and the vest, we're talking 70 pounds offset from center.
Yeah.
And now you're going to do that for 12 hours. That shouldn't make you pain-free. So it's been an interesting piece of exploring, what do these camera people need, considering how much that load is changing their sense of where they are in space. Let me switch back here. Stop sharing. All right.
There we go.
So I think it's great to have a visual for that because, like I said, when some of my clients would come to me and tell me that someone said, oh, can't you just put the camera down more often? I just thought, wow, they really need someone who understands the nature of their work on all of these little levels, because it's not just, they have an asymmetrical thing. It's not just that they work long hours. It's like how all of these things stack on top of each other.
Sure. What would you... Oh, I got really bad feedback. Hold on one second. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you say are some of like your biggest tips, tricks, like go-to type things that you're always telling your clients, like, you need this or you need this? Do you find like, are people like not in the right shoes? Do they need
Oh God.
breathing stuff? Do they, I mean, like, what would you say are some of your top things that you're like, hey, if you want to keep your career going, like we gotta address this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to put a pin in shoes and then come back to helping them to consider what not to do,
Yeah.
helping them to consider what is not a good use of their time. I really try to persuade my clients to get some sort of tracking device,
Mm-hmm.
a sleep tracker, Aura, Whoop, Garmin, whatever, because movie business people are so good at pushing themselves that, because imagine like you're used to being at work until 6 a.m. and it's like 13 degrees outside and you've been outside since 7 p.m. the night before. That person is good at pushing.
Yeah.
They need help knowing when to rest.
Sure.
I mean, I used to be a competitive cyclist, and my coach said very casually one day while we were chatting, stress plus rest equals adaptation, Liz. Like, you got to take it easy sometimes. And I say that to them again and again, like, guys, if you
Yeah.
just worked 70 hours, you may not need to work out today.
Sure.
The one of the things that happens a lot in the movie business, and I think this is really important for any person who's working with someone in the movie business to know, is that, like I was saying, how their work schedule gets later and later throughout the week. That means on Saturday they are wrecked. By the time Saturday comes around, they probably worked all night, and the best thing they could do on Saturday is take it easy.
Yeah.
Sleep, eat, walk, go back to bed, because when Monday comes around again, they're going to have to go back to work at 6 a.m.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, just managing that piece. It's really rough. It's really rough. And that's where I do talk to them about a lot of the basics. Can your bedroom be as dark as possible? Can you get sunlight in your eyes when you wake up? Because again, I think the best way to frame it is perpetual jet lag.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what they're up against. Now going back to shoes, whoo, buddy.
Yeah.
In the Steadicam world in particular, there was a recommendation for a while to wear barefoot shoes.
Oh no.
Oh no. Yeah, barefoot shoes while they've got a 70-pound camera strapped to their body and how they're going to run with it.
Yeah.
That has been something I have really tried hard to change the narrative on. And the thing is, some part of their desire for barefoot shoes is about safety,
Mm-hmm.
because they're on a film set, and sometimes, while you see the scene, there are like cables on the ground and things that they could trip on. So they feel like the barefoot shoes help them to feel what
Yep.
they're stepping over while they need to be looking, the other direction, not at the ground.
Yeah.
What I have tried to do with them is have the sort of like a middle ground. Like, okay, you have a very challenging shot. You're worried about tripping. Cool. Go put your barefoot shoes on. As soon as you're done, get back in your PRI shoes.
Yeah.
And most people have really come around to that. I mean, I got a photo once from some of my Steadicam clients who were at an event together with all of their feet in the photo, and they all had their PRI shoes. I was like,
That's
yes,
great.
that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
But that's where, I think from my perspective, that's so much of what they need is like, how can we just stay ahead of it? How can we just not get so into the weeds that
Sure.
you're not going to be able to recover? Because also for these people, since it's not a normal job, you're not employed by someone, you need to be ready to take work when it comes. So that means whatever we can do to not get hurt.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't have time to recover if something happens.
Have you noticed anything with people like since they've started doing PRI techniques, changing their shoes, they've got their, watch, whatever, that they're able to recover quicker?
Yeah.
because they're able to get back to that normal resting state, not being in fight or flight mode, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the other thing is what I see sometimes, which I'll be honest, it drives me nuts because I feel like I've been like fighting the good fight on this topic for a while. But people will come to me and they'll have, they'll be so patho. They'll have no hamstrings. They only ever feel their calves under the load of the Steadicam. And now they want to go do some sort of CrossFit class or something. And I'm like, oh my God, no.
Yeah. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah. And that's what's great though, is that when those people come to me and we start giving them what their system was missing, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I've been sleeping better. And like, oh yeah, my resting heart rate went down. And wow, I felt my hamstrings in the Steadicam for the first time. Like, and so they do notice, what they're getting. I think for me, the name of the game is how can we get the word out from the get go?
Yeah.
I'm actually doing an event on Tuesday with the Cinematographers Guild in the New York office here. They're having some sort of health fair. And so all of those things where it's got the sort of seal of approval of a major motion picture organization,
Yeah.
like one of the unions, or like NBC brought me in to work with some of their camera operators. That I'm always like, okay, great. Like we just gotta keep getting the word out. If we could get it in front of more film schools, that would be great too.
Sure. Yeah. Help these people to do their career and not be miserable in the process.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say to your question about like, are there specific things that help them? If I had to say two things that I think camera people probably need, like in order of priority, paraspinal inhibition,
Mm.
all the paraspinal inhibition,
Look at that little thumbs up.
intercostal inhibition, right intercostal inhibition.
Yep.
Now, most Steadicam operators are experiencing a right-sided load. There's two ways you can operate the Steadicam. Regular stance means the camera's on your left. Goofy means the camera's on your right. So for the ones who are regular stance, they're really getting that right side compression. So for those people, boy, I give them intercostal inhibition activity sometimes and they're about to cry. They're like, oh my God, I've never felt this before.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
it's powerful. The goofy operators are interesting, and for a little while I was curious, like how does that influence them from a PRI perspective if they're being forced into left side compression?
Yeah.
At this point, I think it doesn't change things in the way I wish it would.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the patients that their organs are reversed in situ. Dan and Donna just gave a talk on that. And even though you would think that that would change a little bit of how they would present, it still comes back to predominance, and that are how we developed. We all love our right side. So it
Yeah.
does not matter in that sense. So even though maybe there might be a slight advantage, to maybe being a goofy operator, because they at least know what their left side is, potentially a little bit more. Their brain is still wired to want to go to the right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think at this point, I mean, goofy is a lot less common. Like percentage wise, I'd say it's 10%.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'd say when I see goofy operators, they just test as patho PC.
Yeah.
And they still get better just like everybody else, but it's definitely an interesting dynamic to see. I remember talking to Dan a couple years ago, and I was like, "But don't you think it could be helping them get neutral? Like, wouldn't that be great? You've got to do this."
Yeah.
But what I've realized is that just because the load is on their left doesn't mean that they're going to effectively compress their left side to manage a load that would
Exactly.
otherwise pull them to the right.
Yeah.
People have all kinds of different strategies to manage a load
Mhm.
that is offset from center.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We are great cheaters
Right.
inadvertently.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else you could kind of think of that people should know injury prevention wise of what, well, as a trainer, what would be some of your other top things that you would tell people to do for injury prevention?
So, well, and this is specific to people with pain or without pain. I think that it is imperative for people in the movie business, or working
Mhm.
with people in the movie business, to really get good at that minimum effective dose of
Mhm.
what does this person most need and how can we get the biggest adaptation with the least amount of time. Because if you go another direction, and let's say, you've got someone who, okay, now they're neutral and we're going to get them really strong, and you're asking them to work out, an hour 4 times a week, then when they go back to work, they're not going to have a skill set to apply to the hours they're working.
Sure.
So my perspective is, let me help them to understand, internally, and experience adaptation and progress on a workout that is so short they think it's silly.
Yeah.
Because if I
How
go
long
ahead.
would you say your workouts are that you give people?
I try to keep it at like 30 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And it depends, like, what are they working on?
Mhm.
But I try to cap it around 30 minutes, 50 at the most. I mean, during the pandemic, for example, that first year in 2020, I was running a virtual class, and we had class 3 times a week. And most of those classes, I wanted them to only be like actually exercising for 45 minutes. And I hired someone to come in and teach one of the classes. And she wasn't a movie business person. She didn't really understand why those classes needed to stay at 45 minutes. She was like,
Yeah.
but I can give them more. Like, come on, we could do 60 minutes. They can do it. I said, I know they can do it. That's not the question. Question is, what are they going to learn about themselves and about what is needed to get better? I want them to learn that they can get better with something so small that it doesn't impede them from continuing to do it when they go back to work.
Yeah.
And that's where, even with like PRI techniques, I'm very cautious to give people too many things. I mean, if someone's working full time, I'll probably send them away with one or maybe two.
Mhm.
But three, no, three might be too many. As soon as you give them that moment of hesitation of like, oh, do I have time to do this?
Yep. Then they
They're
don't
just
do it.
gonna, yeah, they're gonna do nothing. So, hey, do one.
Yeah.
Do this one in the morning and at lunch and before you go to bed. Good. Like, we can work with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think dosing, the appropriate dose for the individual is imperative.
Nice. Nice. All right. Anything else that you want people to know? We're gonna tag all your social media, put all your information down at the bottom of this when we post this and everything. But this is a totally different viewpoint on anything that I have ever known. I loved it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm even thinking of certain people and professions that we see regularly that I'm like, ooh, like maybe you getting a Fitbit or Apple Watch, something to track stuff, might actually be a better thing for you. So you gave me a totally different viewpoint of something to look at.
I think it's helpful for them to have that data as long as it's not going to become stressful. You
Yes.
know, I think if they can start to, correlate, oh, like I was awake until 7 a.m. and I was dehydrated and my resting heart rate was elevated,
Mhm.
maybe an easy activity like a long walk is better for me today,
Yeah.
and kind of learning to navigate those long term perspective, short term wins.
Hmm.
in the way that I think a lot of athletes have to get better at that. And that's one of the things I also try to tell them is like, look, you're doing a very athletic job.
Yeah.
So we've got to really start looking at this like an athlete. What do you need? What are the basics?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
sleep, hydration, nutrition, electrolytes, movement skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Anything else you can think of, Liz?
I think the only other thing I would mention is that I am based in New York City, but I work with people all over the world virtually.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't let distance be the barrier to reaching out.
Right. Probably the best thing
Yeah,
that came out of COVID. Everybody learning technology better.
absolutely. And I mean, the movie business is an international industry.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know, at some point it would be my hope to create a course for practitioners on working with people in the industry because, you know, there, like I said, there's people all over the world, so they need other helpers.
Yes. Yes, for sure. For sure. You have literally changed my viewpoint on watching like a movie and how they are getting shots. Like I never
Yeah.
really thought of it that way. Like I just watch a movie to watch a movie. Not the behind the scenes stuff that actually goes into it. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure
Again,
having me.
we'll get this posted and everything. And if people have questions, they can reach out to you. They can reach out to us here at the clinic. And we can always pass along that information. So
Great.
thank you and have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you.